I was sitting in the doctor's office, waiting for my routine checkup, when my phone rang. It was my only daughter, Danielle. Her voice didn't sound like my Danielle. It was cold, distant. "Mom," she said flatly, "we're leaving tomorrow. I sold your beach house and the old Buick. We needed the money. Don't worry, I'll send you something later. Love you. Bye." And just like that, she hung up. I froze. My hands trembled as I stared at the phone screen, the words echoing in my head. Sold your beach house. That house wasn't just a building. It was where my husband, James, and I had spent 30 summers together. It was where we raised Danielle, where she learned to swim, where we watched the sunset hand in hand, promising we'd never let the world harden our hearts. Now it was gone. Sold. I tried to breathe, but my chest felt heavy, as if the air itself had turned to glass. 48 years of sacrifice, of doing everything for my daughter, and she discarded it all like it meant nothing. But as I sat there, surrounded by strangers in a sterile waiting room that smelled of disinfectant and loneliness, something strange happened. I didn't cry. For the first time since James passed away, I felt calm, because deep down, I knew something Danielle didn't. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 72 years old, and people have always mistaken my silence for weakness. 6 months ago, I buried my husband, a man who worked 2 jobs for 40 years, who believed that peace was something you build with your own hands. Before he died, James had told me, "If anything ever happens to me, Evie, look inside the wooden chest in our bedroom closet. Not right away, only when you feel ready." I had forgotten all about that chest, until now. The nurse called my name, but I barely heard her. My mind was already somewhere else, on the coast of Savannah, in that little yellow beach house with the peeling white fence, where James and I used to dance barefoot in the kitchen on rainy days. Danielle thought she'd taken everything from me, but she had no idea who her mother really was. Before we go on, tell me, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories of courage, faith, and second chances. Because this isn't just a story about loss. It's about how one woman found strength in the silence, and how sometimes the quietest revenge is simply living well. When I got home, the house felt emptier than usual. James's chair still faced the window, just the way he left it. His jacket hung over the back, and his old reading glasses were still on the side table, as if he might walk in any second and pick up where he left off. I sat there for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the old clock, and my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Danielle had done many things that hurt me over the years: distance, indifference, long silences. But this, selling the one place that held the memories of our whole life, that was a wound deeper than any argument. I opened the photo album on the coffee table. There we were, young, sunburned, smiling at Tybee Beach, our daughter in James's arms, wearing that pink swimsuit she refused to take off all summer. She was 5 then, laughing at every wave, afraid of none. I closed the book and sighed. That little girl was gone. The next morning, I walked to the grocery store because, according to Danielle, she'd sold my car too. The walk was long, and the November wind stung my cheeks. At the corner, I saw Mrs. Turner, my neighbor. "Evelyn, honey, are you okay? I heard about Danielle moving to Europe," she said softly. I forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Kids grow up, make their choices." Mrs. Turner gave me a sad look, the kind people give when they think you've been defeated. But I hadn't been defeated. Not yet. That afternoon, I went into my bedroom closet and moved aside the shoeboxes. Behind them was the old wooden chest James had built himself. It was dusty, the brass lock slightly tarnished. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside was a neatly folded letter with my name written in James's handwriting. Under it, several envelopes sealed and labeled. I opened the first letter. "My dear Evelyn, if you are reading this, it means I couldn't tell you everything before I left. I didn't want you to worry. For years I've been saving, investing, and building something for us. The beach house was never just a house, it was the beginning. You own more than you realize, and I've left instructions to help you find it all. Trust Mr. Randall, the lawyer downtown. He knows everything. And please, Evie, don't let anyone, not even Danielle, make you feel small. Love always, James. I pressed the letter to my chest and let out a shaky breath. For months, I had lived believing I was alone and broke. But James had always been one step ahead, even from the grave. I opened the smaller envelopes. Inside were deeds, certificates, and documents with company names I didn't recognize. It was overwhelming. I called Mr. Randall's office the next morning. "This is Evelyn Carter," I said, "James Carter's widow." There was a pause. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes, of course. Your husband left instructions to contact me if you ever called." We arranged a meeting for the next day. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the moonlight fall over the empty street. The world outside was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes right before something changes forever. Danielle had taken my home, my car, and the last pieces of my husband's memory. But she had no idea she'd just awakened a part of me I thought had died with him, the part that fights back. The next morning, I put on my best navy dress, the one James always said made me look like I meant business, and took the bus downtown. Mr. Randall's office was in a tall glass building that smelled of lemon polish and ambition. He greeted me kindly, offered me tea, and spread the documents across his desk. "Mrs. Carter, your husband was a remarkable man," he began. I smiled sadly. That he was. He invested in several properties over the years, apartments, a small marina, and even shares in a tech startup. He kept everything under a company name, Carter & Sons Holdings, registered in your name. "In my name?" I asked, stunned. "Yes, you are the sole owner and heir." I blinked. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I thought I had lost everything, but I was wealthier than I'd ever imagined. Mr. Randall continued, "There's one more thing. The sale of your beach house. That was illegal. Your daughter had no authority to sell it. We can reverse it easily." My jaw tightened. "No," I said. "Not yet. Mrs. Carter, I want the paperwork ready, but I don't want my daughter to know. Not until I decide the time is right." He studied me for a moment, perhaps trying to gauge whether I was planning revenge or something else. "Understood," he said. As I rode the bus home, the city passed by in a blur, coffee shops, people rushing, car horns, the usual chaos of life. But I felt something different in my chest. Power. Quiet, patient power. At home, I brewed tea and sat at the kitchen table, spreading the documents out like a general planning her next move. For years, I had let Danielle make decisions, believing that motherhood meant sacrifice without limits. But now it was time she learned that a mother's silence doesn't mean surrender. Danielle thought she'd left me with nothing but memories and regret. But what she didn't know was that her mother was about to rewrite the ending of this story. When I got home, the house felt emptier than usual. James's chair still faced the window, just the way he left it. His jacket hung over the back, and his old reading glasses were still on the side table, as if he might walk in any second and pick up where he left off. I sat there for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the old clock, and my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Danielle had done many things that hurt me over the years: distance, indifference, long silences. But this, selling the one place that held the memories of our whole life, that was a wound deeper than any argument. I opened the photo album on the coffee table. There we were, young, sunburned, smiling at Tybee Beach, our daughter in James's arms, wearing that pink swimsuit she refused to take off all summer. She was 5 then, laughing at every wave, afraid of none. I closed the book and sighed. That little girl was gone. The next morning, I walked to the grocery store because, according to Danielle, she'd sold my car too. The walk was long, and the November wind stung my cheeks. At the corner, I saw Mrs. Turner, my neighbor. "Evelyn, honey, are you okay? I heard about Danielle moving to Europe," she said softly. I forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Kids grow up, make their choices." Mrs. Turner gave me a sad look, the kind people give when they think you've been defeated. But I hadn't been defeated. Not yet. That afternoon, I went into my bedroom closet and moved aside the shoe boxes. Behind them was the old wooden chest James had built himself. It was dusty, the brass lock slightly tarnished. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside was a neatly folded letter with my name written in James's handwriting. Under it, several envelopes sealed and labeled. I opened the first letter. "My dear Evelyn, if you are reading this, it means I couldn't tell you everything before I left. I didn't want you to worry. For years I've been saving, investing, and building something for us. The beach house was never just a house. It was the beginning. You own more than you realize, and I've left instructions to help you find it all. Trust Mr. Randall, the lawyer downtown. He knows everything. And please, Evie, don't let anyone, not even Danielle, make you feel small. Love always, James." I pressed the letter to my chest and let out a shaky breath. For months, I had lived believing I was alone and broke. But James had always been one step ahead, even from the grave. I opened the smaller envelopes. Inside were deeds, certificates, and documents with company names I didn't recognize. It was overwhelming. I called Mr. Randall's office the next morning. "This is Evelyn Carter," I said. "James Carter's widow." There was a pause. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes, of course. Your husband left instructions to contact me if you ever called." We arranged a meeting for the next day. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the moonlight fall over the empty street. The world outside was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes right before something changes forever. Danielle had taken my home, my car, and the last pieces of my husband's memory. But she had no idea she'd just awakened a part of me I thought had died with him, the part that fights back. The next morning, I put on my best navy dress, the one James always said made me look like I meant business, and took the bus downtown. Mr. Randall's office was in a tall glass building that smelled of lemon polish and ambition. He greeted me kindly, offered me tea, and spread the documents across his desk. "Mrs. Carter, your husband was a remarkable man," he began. I smiled sadly. That he was. He invested in several properties over the years, apartments, a small marina, and even shares in a tech startup. He kept everything under a company name, Carter & Sons Holdings, registered in your name. "In my name?" I asked, stunned. "Yes, you are the sole owner and heir." I blinked. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I thought I had lost everything, but I was wealthier than I'd ever imagined. Mr. Randall continued, "There's one more thing. The sale of your beach house, that was illegal. Your daughter had no authority to sell it. We can reverse it easily." My jaw tightened. "No," I said, "not yet. Mrs. Carter, I want the paperwork ready, but I don't want my daughter to know, not until I decide the time is right." He studied me for a moment, perhaps trying to gauge whether I was planning revenge or something else. "Understood," he said. As I rode the bus home, the city passed by in a blur. Coffee shops, people rushing, car horns, the usual chaos of life. But I felt something different in my chest. Power. Quiet, patient power. At home, I brewed tea and sat at the kitchen table, spreading the documents out like a general planning her next move. For years, I had let Danielle make decisions, believing that motherhood meant sacrifice without limits. But now? Now, it was time she learned that a mother's silence doesn't mean surrender. Danielle thought she'd left me with nothing but memories and regret. But what she didn't know was that her mother was about to rewrite the ending of this story. The next few days passed in silence. I didn't call Danielle, and she didn't call me. The last message I received from her was a photo of her and her husband boarding a plane, smiling, holding champagne glasses. No words, just a heart emoji. I stared at that picture for a long time before deleting it. There was a time when that would have broken me. But not now. Now it only fueled something stronger inside me. I began meeting with Mr. Randall more frequently. Each time we uncovered more of James's hidden legacy, bank accounts, rental properties, even land titles in other states. James had been far more careful and intelligent than anyone knew. It was almost poetic. Danielle had stolen from the woman who already owned everything she wanted. Mr. Randall helped me regain control of the assets quietly. Every signature I placed on those documents felt like reclaiming a piece of my strength. "Mrs. Carter," he said one morning, "you have enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. You could buy another house or two if you wanted." I smiled. "I don't want another house, Mr. Randall. I want the truth to come out at the right time, and when it does, I want it to mean something." He nodded. "You remind me of your husband, patient but sharp." "James always said time does half the work if you know how to wait," I replied. That afternoon, I took the bus to the coast to see what had become of the beach house. The ride was long, nearly 2 hours, but when I saw that familiar stretch of ocean again, my heart skipped a beat. The house looked the same from a distance, the pale yellow walls, the white shutters, but as I got closer, I saw changes. The porch was repainted. A new couple was living there, their car parked in the driveway, toys scattered on the sand. I didn't want to scare them, so I stood across the street pretending to wait for someone. A few minutes later, the woman came out to water her plants. She looked kind. "Excuse me," I said softly. "Did you buy this place recently?" She smiled. "Yes, about 2 weeks ago. Lovely house. We were told the former owner was an elderly woman who needed to sell quickly. Poor thing, apparently very sick." My stomach turned. Danielle had lied, again. "I see," I said, forcing a smile. "It's a beautiful home. You'll love the sunsets here." "Oh, you've been here before?" "For many years," I said. "It used to belong to a friend." As I walked away, I felt the wind off the ocean brush against my face. It smelled like salt, memory, and quiet anger. That night, back home, I called Mr. Randall. "Can we reverse the sale now?" I asked. "Yes, Mrs. Carter. I've already prepared the documents. Once you sign, the house will legally return to your name." "Do it," I said. "And please make sure the buyers get their money back. They were innocent in all this." He hesitated. "And your daughter?" "She doesn't know anything yet." "Let's keep it that way." Every night after that, I would sit at the kitchen table going through the papers, James's letters, bank statements, deeds. It became my new routine. Every signature, every plan was a way of saying, "I'm not done yet." Weeks passed. Savannah's winter came softly, wrapping the streets in mist and quiet. The neighborhood thought I was just another lonely widow keeping herself busy. They had no idea I was orchestrating a storm behind those curtains. Then, one afternoon, Mrs. Turner came to my door, excitement in her eyes. "Evelyn, honey, have you heard? Danielle's back in town." I looked at her calmly. "Back already?" "Yes. My niece saw her at the airport yesterday. Looked exhausted. Alone. Alone." That word hit like a whisper from fate. That night I got another call, this time from Danielle herself. Her voice was trembling. "Mom, can we talk?" I stayed silent for a moment, letting the quiet stretch between us. "Of course, honey. Are you all right?" "No. Edward, he's gone. He left me in Europe, took all the money. I came home and the apartment's a mess. The bank says there are problems with the property, loans, debts I don't even understand." I closed my eyes. It was all happening exactly as I had feared, and maybe, deep down, as I had expected. "Oh, Danielle," I said softly. "Come by tomorrow. We'll talk." When I hung up, I stood by the window, looking out at the streetlights flickering on. I thought about how fast life turns its tables. The same daughter who once talked to me like I was a burden was now coming to me broken, desperate, and alone. The next morning, I made coffee and set out 2 cups. When Danielle arrived, she looked nothing like the woman in the airport photo. Her hair was uncombed, her eyes swollen, her voice fragile. "Mom," she whispered, almost ashamed. "Come in, baby," I said gently. "Sit down." She sat at the table, staring at her hands. "I don't know what to do. Edward lied to me. There was no business in Europe, no investments. Everything was fake. He even used my name to sign loans. I'm in trouble, Mom." I stayed quiet, letting her words hang in the air. Then she said the line I knew was coming. "Can I stay here for a while? Just until I figure things out?" My heart ached. The mother in me wanted to hold her, to tell her it was all going to be fine. But another part, the part that remembered that cold phone call in the doctor's office, knew that forgiveness had to mean more than comfort. "Of course," I said at last. "You can stay. This will always be your home." She started to cry. "Thank you, Mom. I don't deserve this." "Maybe not yet," I said softly, "but we'll work on that." That night, as I watched her sleep in her old bedroom, surrounded by the same childhood posters she once begged me to hang, I realized the story had turned. Danielle thought she'd come back to her mother's house for shelter. But what she didn't know was that she had just walked into her lesson. The following days felt strangely familiar, almost like the past had come back, but wearing a different face. Danielle moved quietly around the house, trying to help, but I could feel the heaviness in her every step. The confident woman who once lectured me about moving on now avoided my eyes. She'd wake up early, make coffee, and stand by the window like she was waiting for something that wasn't coming back. One morning, she broke the silence. "Mom, do you hate me?" I looked up from my tea. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I deserve it, after everything I did." Her voice cracked. "I treated you like you were in my way. I sold the things you loved most and didn't even ask how you felt. I keep thinking about that phone call, how cold I sounded. I don't know what was wrong with me." I took a deep breath. "You were chasing something you thought was love. I've been there, but love built on selfishness always collapses." Danielle nodded, her eyes wet. "I lost everything, Mom. The apartment, the money, the car, everything." I leaned forward. "No, Danielle. You lost what was never really yours. The things that matter can't be taken away that easily." She didn't know how right I was. As days went by, Danielle tried to get back on her feet. She went out looking for jobs, only to return exhausted and disappointed. Every rejection letter chipped away at her pride. One evening, she came home late, her shoes muddy and her hair damp from the rain. "I found a cleaning job," she said quietly. "It's at a small office downtown. It doesn't pay much, but it's something." I smiled. "That's good, honey. Work has a way of reminding us who we are." She sighed. "It's strange. I used to think people who cleaned offices or worked long shifts were failures. Now I see they're the strongest people in the world." That night, while she was asleep, I went to my bedroom and pulled out one of James's envelopes, the one labeled Future Decisions. Inside, there was another letter. "My Evie, if life ever brings you to a place where someone you love loses their way, don't rush to save them. Let them walk through the storm. It's the only way they'll remember the way home." I smiled through tears. James always knew. The next morning, Danielle offered to cook breakfast. She burned the eggs, spilled the coffee, and laughed for the first time in weeks. "Guess I'm a bit out of practice," she said. I chuckled. "You were never much of a cook, baby. Dad used to say the same thing." Her voice softened. "He always made the best pancakes." We both went quiet. The mention of James still carried weight, but this time it wasn't grief. It was gratitude. Later that week, I received a call from Mr. Randall. "Mrs. Carter, the transfer of ownership is complete. You now have full control over all your assets, including the beach house and your late husband's company accounts." "Thank you," I said. "Keep everything quiet for now." "As you wish," he replied. "By the way, we also located your husband's truck. The buyer agreed to return it for a small fee." I smiled. James would have loved that. When I hung up, I looked out the window and saw Danielle hanging the laundry in the yard. She looked so different now. barefoot, hair tied back, no makeup, humming to herself. There was humility in her every gesture, a softness that hadn't been there in years. That night, I brought her a cup of tea. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through job listings on her phone. "Mom," she said suddenly, "I've been thinking. Maybe I should sell some of my jewelry, the little I have left. I owe the bank a few thousand. I don't want you to worry about it." I placed my hand on hers. "Don't rush. Sometimes life gives us a debt to remind us what's truly valuable." She smiled faintly. "You always talk like there's a hidden meaning behind everything." Because there usually is. 2 weeks later, Danielle came home one evening looking defeated. "They froze my account. The bank said they're investigating Edward's debts. Apparently, he used my name on some of the loans." I stayed calm. "Did you sign anything?" "No. I was so in love I didn't even read what I was signing. He said it was for travel insurance and paperwork for Europe. I was so stupid." "You were trusting," I said gently. "That's not stupidity. It's just misplaced faith." She buried her face in her hands. "I don't even have money for a lawyer." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to tell her everything, that her father had left us enough to fix all of this, that I'd already taken care of it. But I remembered James's letter. Don't rush to save them. That night, I called Mr. Randall. "How long until we can clear her name?" "A few weeks, maybe a month," he said. "We have the documents proving Edward's fraud. Once the court processes them, she'll be free of all liability." "Good," I said. "Handle everything quietly. Don't let her know yet." Every morning after that, Danielle would leave early for her cleaning job and come home exhausted but proud. I could see her changing. She had stopped blaming the world and started taking responsibility for her life. One evening she said, "Mom, I want to pay rent, just a little every month." I looked at her surprised. "You don't need to do that." "I know," she said, "but I want to. You've given me everything, and I took advantage of it. I want to earn my place again." That moment, I saw my daughter as a woman for the first time. Not as the girl who had betrayed me, but as someone who had finally learned the meaning of humility and effort. Before bed, I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done in years. "She's learning. Slowly, painfully, but she's learning. James, you'd be proud." And maybe, for the first time in months, I slept without anger in my heart. The next morning, Danielle surprised me. "Mom, I've been saving. I know it's not much, but I want to visit the beach house one day, just to see it again, if that's okay with you." I smiled, hiding the truth that the house was already mine again. "Of course, honey. When the time is right, we'll go." She didn't know it yet, but soon she'd see just how far her mother's patience had gone, and how much love was hidden behind every quiet choice I made. 3 weeks passed before Mr. Randall called again. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "the case has been processed. All of your daughter's debts linked to her husband have been cleared. She's legally free of everything Edward forged." "Thank you," I said. "You've done more than you know. When do you plan to tell her?" I paused, looking out the window at the golden light spilling over the street. "Soon, but not before I'm sure she understands why it all had to happen this way." That evening, Danielle came home later than usual. She looked tired, but there was a different kind of tiredness in her eyes, a quiet endurance. "Mom," she said softly, "today at work, a lady told me she admired me." "Why's that?" "Because I never complain. She said I always smile, even when things get hard." I smiled back. "That's because you've learned that complaining doesn't fix anything." Danielle nodded. "Yeah, I guess I finally did." She hesitated. "Mom, I want to show you something." She pulled out a small envelope from her purse and handed it to me. Inside was a crumpled check, her first paycheck. "I want you to have it." "Danielle, no. You need that. Please," she said. "You've given me a roof, food, kindness, and patience. Let me give something back." I held the check in my hand, my throat tightening. "You've already given me something back, Danielle," I whispered. "You gave me peace." She smiled faintly. "Then keep it as a souvenir. That night, after she went to bed, I sat in the kitchen staring at that small piece of paper. There was so much meaning in that check. It was her redemption written in ink. The next morning, I decided it was time. "Danielle," I said over breakfast, "I have to take you somewhere today." She looked confused. "Where?" "You'll see." We got on the bus together. She stared out the window, the wind blowing through her hair, unaware of where we were headed. When the familiar scent of the ocean reached us, her eyes widened. "Mom, is this—" "Yes," I said, smiling. "We're home." We got off near the dunes. The beach house stood there, glowing in the afternoon sun, exactly as she remembered it. Danielle froze on the sidewalk. "I don't understand. Mom, this house, it was sold." "Not anymore." She turned to me, her voice trembling. "What are you saying?" "I got it back." Her eyes filled with tears. "How?" "Because it was never really gone. The sale was illegal, Danielle. Your father left everything to me. All these years, he invested quietly. Properties, businesses, stocks. You sold what you thought was all I had, but it was just one drop in a much bigger ocean." She covered her mouth, speechless. "Mom, you mean—" "Yes," I said calmly. "We're not poor. We never were. Your father made sure of that." She took a step back, her voice cracking. "You knew all this time? Even when I came back? When I cried and begged for help?" "I did." "Then why didn't you tell me?" she shouted, her tears falling freely now. "Why did you let me suffer like that? Why did you watch me clean floors and worry about food when you could have fixed everything?" I met her eyes and said quietly, "Because you needed to see who you were without money. You needed to understand what it means to lose, to fight, and to rebuild." Danielle shook her head, crying harder. "That's cruel." "No," I said softly. "That's love." She sank down onto the porch steps, crying into her hands. I sat beside her, letting the ocean breeze fill the silence between us. "I wasn't punishing you," I continued. "I was teaching you the same lesson life taught me when I was young, that peace isn't bought, and love isn't something you can sell or trade." Danielle turned to me slowly. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," I said. "But forgiveness isn't something you earn. It's something you grow into." We sat there for a long time, just listening to the waves crash against the shore. Finally, she whispered, "What would Dad say if he saw all this?" I smiled. He'd probably say, "Took you long enough to learn, kid." She laughed through her tears. It was the first real laugh I'd heard from her in months. Inside the house, everything was exactly as it used to be. The same creaky floors, the same photographs on the walls, the same smell of sea salt and coffee. Danielle walked from room to room like a child rediscovering her past. In the living room, she stopped in front of a picture of James holding her as a baby. "I can't believe I tried to sell this place," she whispered. "It feels like he's still here." "He is," I said. "Every nail, every wall, every piece of this house carries his hands." She looked around, eyes shining. "Mom, how did you do all of this? The legal stuff, the money, the papers." "I had help. Mr. Randall, your father trusted him. He handled everything, quietly." Danielle sat down on the couch and stared at me. "You planned all this?" "I did. Even letting me move back in?" "Especially that part," I said with a smile. "You thought you were coming back to survive, but really you were coming back to learn." Her eyes softened. "You're stronger than I ever realized." "No," I said, touching her hand. "I just stopped being afraid of being alone." We stayed at the beach house until sunset. Danielle stood on the porch, watching the horizon, her face calm for the first time in a long while. "Mom," she said quietly, "thank you." "For what?" "For letting me fall far enough to find my way back." That night, when we drove home, the silence between us was peaceful. Not the silence of distance, but the silence of understanding. For years I had wanted my daughter to see me not as someone she could use, but as someone she could learn from. And now she finally did. The weeks after that trip felt different, like the air itself had softened. Danielle and I began to rebuild our lives in small, quiet ways. We cooked breakfast together again. We laughed over burnt toast and shared stories about James, the man who had somehow prepared both of us for this moment without ever saying a word. For the first time in years, our conversations weren't about money or things or disappointment. They were about memories, dreams, and forgiveness. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, Danielle brought me a cup of coffee and sat beside me on the porch. "Mom," she said, "I've been thinking. I want to go back to school, maybe get a degree in social work or counseling. I want to help women who went through what I did." I smiled, feeling pride bloom inside me like the morning light. "That sounds beautiful, Danielle." She looked at me shyly. "Do you think Dad would be proud of me?" "He already is," I said. "So am I." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not the quiet, empty kind that comes from giving up, but the kind that comes from finally healing. A few days later, I met Mr. Randall for lunch. He handed me a folder. "Everything's settled now. All your properties are in your name. You're officially one of the wealthiest women in Savannah, Mrs. Carter." I chuckled softly. "Wealth doesn't mean much when you've already lost everything once." He smiled. "So what will you do with it?" I looked out the window, watching people hurry past with briefcases and coffee cups. "I think it's time I do something that matters. James always said money only means something when it helps someone else stand back up." Mr. Randall nodded approvingly. "Then I think he'd be proud of what you're about to do." The next week, Danielle and I visited the beach house again. This time, I carried a small wooden box, James's old toolbox, the one he used to fix everything from leaky pipes to broken chairs. On the porch, I placed the box down and took a deep breath. "You know, Danielle," I said, "your father always believed this house wasn't just for us. He said one day it should help others too." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I'm turning it into a retreat," I said. "A small place by the sea for women who've lost everything, widows, mothers, daughters, so they can rest, rebuild, and remember who they are." Danielle's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, that's beautiful." I smiled. "I think so too. It's what your father would have wanted." She reached for my hand. "Can I help?" I squeezed her fingers gently. "That's the plan, sweetheart. You'll be the one running it." She blinked, stunned. "Me?" "Yes. You've lived both sides, the fall and the rise. That's what makes you perfect for it." She laughed softly, still crying. "I can't believe this is happening." "Believe it," I said. "You earned this, Danielle, not with money, but with growth." We spent the following months preparing the house. Danielle painted the walls, fixed the garden, and filled every room with warmth and light. I watched her transform not just the house, but herself. The anger, the guilt, the arrogance, they all melted away, replaced by purpose. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she said, "Mom, remember when I told you I sold this house because I thought we needed money?" "I remember." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I thought I was doing what was best for us. But really, I was running from who I was. I didn't want to see myself as someone who needed help, so I took control in all the wrong ways." I smiled. Life has a funny way of teaching us that control isn't the same as strength. She nodded. "Yeah, I learned that the hard way." We watched the ocean in silence for a while. The waves rolled in and out, steady, forgiving. After a moment, Danielle whispered, "Mom, thank you for not giving up on me, even when I didn't deserve it." I turned to her and said, "That's what mothers do, baby. We don't give up. We just wait until you're ready to come home." That night, as I lay in bed listening to the waves, I thought about James. I imagined him smiling somewhere beyond the stars, proud of the two women he left behind. A few weeks later, we opened the retreat. We called it the Carter Haven. On the first day, 3 women arrived. One had lost her husband, another her home, and the third, her faith in herself. Danielle welcomed them at the door with a warm smile, her voice steady and gentle. Watching her, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: wholeness. That evening, she came up to me and said, "You know, Mom, every time I see the women here smile, I feel like I'm healing a little more too." I touched her cheek. "That's how it works, baby. When we help others rise, we rise too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood on the porch, the wind brushing against my face. For the first time since James passed, I felt complete. Not because I got the house back, not because of the money, but because I got my daughter back. Danielle came out, holding 2 cups of tea. We stood there together, sipping quietly as the waves whispered below us. "Mom," she said softly, "I never thought happiness could feel so quiet." I smiled. "That's because real happiness doesn't shout, honey. It whispers." We stayed there long after the stars came out, letting the sound of the sea carry our silence. And as I watched the moonlight dance on the water, I realized something beautiful. Sometimes life takes everything from you, just so it can give it all back in a different form. That's what James had known all along. That's what I finally understood. 5 years later, the beach house looked almost the same from the outside. White walls, blue shutters, the porch that James built with his own hands. But inside, everything had changed. Laughter echoed through the rooms now, women talking, children playing in the garden, music floating in from the kitchen. The Carter Haven had become a true refuge, a place where broken hearts found a second chance. Danielle stood at the front door greeting a new guest, a young widow with trembling hands, clutching a small suitcase. "Welcome home," Danielle said softly. The woman's eyes filled with tears. I don't have anywhere else to go." Danielle smiled. "You do now." From the porch, I watched her, strong, kind, patient. Everything I had hoped she'd become. Every week, more women arrived, some with stories of betrayal, others of loss, and left with a piece of themselves healed. That evening, Danielle joined me on the porch, bringing 2 mugs of tea. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and lavender. "Mom," she said, "we just helped our 100th woman today." I smiled. "Your father would have loved that." She nodded. "I think about him all the time. I hope he knows we turned his house into something good." "Oh, he knows," I said, looking toward the horizon. "He's been watching over us this whole time." Danielle grew quiet for a moment. "You know, sometimes I still hear his voice. That calm way he used to say, 'Take a breath, Danny. You'll find your way.'" I laughed softly. He said that to both of us more times than I can count. We sat in silence for a while, watching the waves rise and fall. Finally, she turned to me. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. If you could go back, would you change anything?" I thought about it for a long moment, about the pain, the betrayal, the tears, about the lessons that came from every scar. "No," I said, "because without the storm, we never would have found the calm." She smiled through tears. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, Danielle, more than you'll ever know." We clinked our cups gently, letting the moment stretch into forever. As night fell, I looked out over the sea, the moon reflecting on the waves. The same sea that had once witnessed my heartbreak was now watching my healing. And I realized something simple but true. Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the ones who end up teaching us what love really means. Because real love, the kind that survives betrayal, grief, and time, doesn't vanish. It transforms, it rebuilds, and just like the tide, it always finds its way back home. If this story meant something to you, don't just leave. Join our community, subscribe now, and share this message of grit.